Present. So let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:31. This is June the 22nd, 2022. This is a meeting of the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee. First of all, let me call roll real quick. Rich Bowman. Here. Dan Badman.
Here.
Kelly Hunter.
Here.
And David Douglas, present. So I only have one minor issue with the agenda, and I don't think it's that major. We have listed under new business the project prioritization exercise. We'd actually discussed that in the last meeting, but I don't think it's that significant. So do I have a motion to accept the current agenda, or do any of the other members have changes or
I move to accept the agenda.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Next is public comment. Do we have anybody that's
No one registered, but we do have a couple people on Zoom. There is a Johnny on Zoom, and there's Carolyn Bowers. Do either of you have any public comment? Any of you?
The chat, is there Nate, is that turned off for the meeting?
Yeah, we pretty much don't chat or monitor chat during the meeting. Standard operating procedure.
Okay, because I wanted to send I just wanted to through the chat ask Kelly if I could have her email address.
Oh, sure.
And
I could
that's
ask, I could give it to you now.
Okay, what is it?
KELLYGRN like Green Mountain Falls, GRN like Nancy
Okay.
at Comcast.net.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lisa or any Don, any public comment? Came in just in time for that.
okay? Then there not being any public comment, we will move on to the consent agenda for the minutes of our last meeting, May 30th, 2022, which are included in our agenda packet. I assume that everyone has read them. If you haven't, you can just take a quick minute and look it over. My only comment was I didn't realize how rambling I was in our last meeting. It kept shifting from one agenda item to the other and back, and so I'm sure that they had a faithful recording of the minutes.
Yes, I like Zoom for that purpose.
It was shocking when I read the minutes. We were all over the place.
Tried to track.
Any comments on the minutes of our last meeting? Do I have a motion to approve and accept?
A motion to approve and accept.
And Batten moved. Second by Rich. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving to our project prioritization discussion that we had in the last meeting. We identified some key areas for fire mitigation that were less focused on large landscape size projects where organizations like Mile High Youth Corps and Cusp, who we're all accustomed to, there's a lot of involvement there. Really, we wanted to move it to more of a local level prioritization some projects. And the 6 that we listed as part of our meeting are in the lower left of the prioritization exercise matrix. And those were listed as chipper projects, homeowner assistance, flash logs, debris removal, right-of-way mitigation, assessments team, and education team. And those were in no particular order. And so our exercise was for everybody on the committee to have take some time and look at this and determine what they individually thought was or were the prioritizations of these projects. And you know, I thought it was interesting that we were all pretty much on the same page. And so I sort of took a stab at how to organize this and color coded, you know, on each of the letters, A, B, C, D, E. So you'll see that E is sort of grouped together. F, you know, so to me, there seemed to be a pattern that you can take that and do an average for prioritization. And the way it came out in my assessment of this was that E is, which is assessment team, would be a homeowner assessment to determine if homeowners' properties are appropriately mitigated, or if there are things that they do to reduce ignition zone and having a protective or a defensible zone around their house. The next thing was education. We talked about that a lot. So it was really no surprise that education assessment came very well, they were the top 2 things on the list. And then right away, chipper, homeowner assistance, flash logging, debris removal. So I would invite any comment from the committee as it relates to this project prioritization, and see if you have any disagreement with what we've listed here in terms of the order of priority. None. Then I will assume that we think there's a formal acceptance required here, but the purpose of doing this was to begin to bring some order around how to accomplish some of these things. And my initial thought is we would have each of the committee members take the lead responsibility for these projects. And the initial step would be to sort of do a project scope of work. What is it that we want to accomplish in terms of an assessment team? How many people would be on the assessment team? How would we engage with the local community? Would it be by request? You know, all of the kinds of things that you would think of in order to develop something. So it's really just, how do we define it? What do we think the resource requirements are? What do we think the cost of execution might be? So education would be for the same thing. What sort of education? What materials would we want to present? How often would we want to provide education? Where would it be? Would it be Valley Bush? The you know, small groups here at Town Hall. So again, we would want somebody to take the lead in terms of really building out an education program for our community. So, you know, going down the list for the right of way, there are going to be a lot of issues in terms of right of way mitigation. I think that's going to be a very complicated issue that's going to have costs associated. We're going to have to do quite a bit of work in terms of developing what that project would be, what are the priority areas, what are the skill sets required of people to do work. Could this be done by volunteers? Would it be something that would require funding so that we would actually hire companies to do this? But this is a real issue. All of these are really significant issues for making sure that our town is safe as we make it. So at this point, I'd like to ask the committee members if you have a favorite here on this project list that you would like to take and begin that process of writing a scope for and all of the resource requirements so that we can begin taking up these projects in our monthly meetings and move forward. Or any comments from anybody on this approach to the project?
Well, I think for me, I'm more drawn to the education team than some of the other things. We're going to do the booth on Bronc Days, Dan and I, and we'll need people to fill slots, time slots in there also, besides just the two of us. But I am kind of drawn to that education team, if that's okay, if nobody else wants it.
There are 6 projects and there are 4 of us on the committee. So, Kelly, I think everybody is happy to have you take education.
So I had sent you an email, David, saying that I was interested in the homeowner assistance and assessment teams.
Yes.
I feel like those kind of go hand in hand, in my opinion, because I can go out and do property assessments, and then with my contact with Byron Spinney, I can then maybe coordinate with his Hope Restored organization and actually do some assistance for the homeowners who need it.
Okay. Thank you. I agree with you. I think those two do go hand in hand. Now, just to be clear, what I'm talking about is not you specifically, Dan or Kelly. This is not a one-man or one-woman show. This is you taking the lead, but bringing in other resources to help you execute this. So in your case, Dan, if you were going to go out and do assessments, you might want to have a team of citizens who have volunteered to, first of all, be taught how to do an assessment, and would be part of the assessment team rather than it being Dan Batten all by himself. So are we on the same page there?
Well, I don't know what would be more difficult for me, doing all the assessments myself or trying to rally folks to help me.
I'd like to do the assessments as well.
Okay.
So I can help with that. But just training somebody to do assessments.
Well, what if you
You're
had
gonna have to spend some time.
yeah, what if you had a checklist?
We can put certain things on the checklist for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what,
It's a possibility.
rather than, come up with what the plan is in this form, you and Dan get together and begin working on how that would work for our town. What resources do you think we need? How would you go about it? How would you engage? Would you do it without somebody asking for it, or would you wait until somebody requested it? Or
I think we're gonna have to wait for somebody to request it. We just can't come along with those properties.
well, we'll get to it later, but yeah, we'll get to it later. But one of the things that I'm proposing is that we have a document where people are essentially making a pledge to participate in our town-wide mitigation effort, which would include agreeing to allow assessments. So, to the extent we could get people to sign off on that, then we could go on, not necessarily go on somebody's property, but we could do yeah.
I mean, it's drive-bys and
Hey, Rich.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm assuming that the Green Mountain Falls Chipeta Fire Department doesn't already do home assessments, correct?
They do very few, it's on request.
Okay.
But Steve does go out and do them.
Okay.
It's usually given in insurance.
Well, I mean, if they're already doing it, if Steve's already doing it, then maybe what we should do if we're going to work together on this is that we reach out to Steve and make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel, and we maybe can just jump and piggyback on a program that he may already have going.
He does probably 2 a year, 3. Not a huge program.
Why don't
It's usually at the request of the homeowner that is having problems getting insurance.
Yeah, Rich, why don't we talk offline about maybe how we develop that with the input from Steve?
Okay.
Thanks, both Dan and Rich on that. In the last meeting, Rich, you agreed to accept the sort of lead as far as the slash log and debris removal for the specific project of the Stone Before.
Yeah.
And to work with Don Walker, who was just tonight. So I'm going to leave you on that, if that's okay.
Sure.
And then I am happy to take on the rights of way and chipper projects, unless somebody really has a hot burning desire. I don't have. Okay. All right, so we will expect, because of the top 2 items are the assessment team and the education team. I think rather than try to tackle all these all at once at each of our meetings, we should try to keep it limited to working down the list of priorities. So let's have in the next meeting, a rough draft of the scope of work and resources, sort of defining what we're doing. Would you agree to that?
Sorry, David, you said by next meeting, have like a resource list, like kind of a program needs?
Just a draft document that would outline what the program would be in terms of, what is the program? What is it that we're going to do? Who's, how many people do you want to be part of the team? What are the resource requirements? Are there going to be any expenses associated with it? And if so, get that included in the budget for next year. So, let's get the ball rolling here on the assessment team and education team, fighting up what the scope is, and then bring it back to the fire mitigation advisory committee to have as a discussion topic. Sound good to everybody?
Yep.
All right. Good. Yes. Well, it was actually
At the beginning, and
yeah.
do you have any time at the end? I have a room.
Okay. We can let us get through our work and then go. All right, this is the document actually I referred to a few minutes ago. As you all know, the Fire Mitigation Committee is part of the Green Box Mayor's Forum on July 3rd. It's a 1-hour forum. The mayor will have the first 30 minutes, and the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee will have the second 30 minutes. And we are going to review some of the materials or handout that at that forum tonight. And this is the first document. this one, or is part of the agenda packet for tonight. Essentially, you know, we've often talked in our meetings that we don't know how to get in touch with property owners. We don't sometimes even know, you know, how to find property owner, locate who the property owner is. So at least, you know, at the mayor's forum, we're going to have a group of people there that some of which are not full-time residents, that they are going to be people in town because of rate. And so this is a great time to reach them. And this little document that I put together gives people a chance to read through and check off if they want to participate in some of these items that have to do with fire mitigation, sort of at the local property level layer of community. So, you know, just the first thing would be, I'd like my property to be registered to participate in the GMF's fire and fuels mitigation program. This means I will be notified of all programs initiated by GMF for the purpose of assessing and developing specific actions to remediate fuels on public and private property. So really, they're just saying, yeah, I'm interested enough. I would like to be notified. Something's going on. And so these are sort of benign in that way. I would like to have free assessment of my property before the action that's necessary to comply with the firewise programs, protect my home. That would be the assessment just talked about. So they're giving their approval by checking this off and signing this piece of paper. I'd like to participate in a program to trim my trees 10 feet above the ground to eliminate ladder. Please have someone contact me to learn more. So all we're doing is asking people for a little buy-in, feedback, and participation so that we can be more proactive. So I'm proposing this to the group tonight, the committee, for your comments. We're also at the very end, this is a pretty major item. The last box to check is I would like to donate the Green Mountain Falls Wildfire Fuels Mitigation Fund, which will be used only for the purpose of fire mitigation projects in Green Mountain Falls on both public and private property. Check should be made to down Green Mountain Falls with a notation of fire mitigation at the bottom. And then we're asking for sign off on this piece of paper. So this is a document that I would like to use in the mayor's forum to hand out to people and ask for them. So, committee, any comments?
One of the things that I would like to see on here, or at some point when we're doing this, is an opportunity for people to provide their emails so that we don't have to do mailings, because that costs a lot of money. And maybe what we could do is just have them email the town hall, or one person that would have like a bulk email that could go out with any information that we can share with them. That way we're not mailing, you know, educational items, we can email them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Kelly, at the top of the document, they have to fill in their name, their permanent address, their Green Mountain Falls property address, their phone number, and their email.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah, there's no problem. So I'm trying to capture as much information as we can. And my thought is, if we could get the people who are in attendance at the mayor's forum to return this document to us at the mayor's forum. So as they're departing, we have got committee members that are situated within the building to accept these documents. So we begin to build sort of a database. Any other comments?
I would give the assessment team a good jump start. There's a lot of information there that's got the assessment team right away.
The mayor's forum, is that being held at town hall?
I think it's in Sally Bush, isn't it?
Oh, okay. All right.
It's at noon on the 3rd.
So, David, we spoke offline about that. I will most likely be there, but I can't commit to it. So, I think the role I'd like to play in that is that I'll be there to answer questions and just help out with this.
Okay. That'd be great, man. Love
Okay.
to be there. One other thing about the mayor's forum, and I didn't know this until I read one of the green box brochures the other day, that said after the forum, the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee is going to lead a hike into the Wallace Reserve to show people what, mitigation of force looks like. We have an actual building there that has had some hardening done and various things that we can show. So there will be a hike to the Wallace Reserve following the mayor's.
I think it's a you meeting.
Being, sort of, there's like the royal we. It does say specifically that I'm leading, but I really would like for many of you who can go to please get. All right, so that that sort of ties into public education. So it sounds like we have pretty much unanimous consent or approval or acceptance of this document for handing out at the mayor's forum. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it looks good.
Okay, the second piece, I think we've already seen, we can move on to that. We looked at this the last meeting we had, and it was agreed by the committee members that you would prefer your cell phone not be included in this handout. And respectfully, we removed that, and it's only your email that's included. I have opted in to allow people to call me if they want to. That's fine. What other changes did we make? All of these links are, we're not going to try and show these because we only have 30 minutes. We're not going to project these at the meeting, but what we're going to do is hand out this piece of paper, this document at the meeting so that people will go back and can go to these links for reference materials on fire mitigation, what steps they may take as individuals. Because this really is going to be an individual private property ownership approach. So, we've also listed the National Fire Prevention Association link. We've got the Coalition for the Upper South Platte, which is doing a lot of mitigation work around our town, in our town. We also have Steve Murphy, who is our chief of the fire district. We have some companies that will do work, whether it is independent contractors pay, or in the case of Hope Store, will do work for absolutely free. So we've tried to get people a resource list and where to go, and then others like County Waste, transportation materials to be uploaded, Rocky Top. So what we get, it's a resource list more than anything else. Stand up.
I added that firewood mystery, Kelly's contact before the contact information. I did have a question though. I was trying to research a little bit online. Kelly, do you know if that old men's group that I've read articles about, is that the same as the firewood ministry at the Woodland Park Community Church, or are those different? Do you know?
Say that again? The firewood ministry, the men's group does the firewood ministry, and they split wood and they deliver it to people, but they would come pick stuff up, if we have it available.
So that old men's group / Pete's Place, is that one and the same as the Woodland Park Community Church group?
No, I don't know what that is. But I
Okay.
also found out today that I called Teller County Waste and they reminded me that there's a place up in Divide, up off Highland, where they take Slash on Saturdays for free. So if you're going to Divide, if you make a left on Highland where those apartments are and the post office, and you go up that road just beyond the apartments on your left, there's a little tiny dirt road and a little itty bitty sign, but they take Slash there for free on Saturdays, I think from 9 to 1
Where is this? It's
in Divide.
it's not the Slash place where you drop off your Slash that's like behind the jail.
No, this is further. So if you keep going like you were going to go to the light
Uh-huh.
in Divide, before you get to the light, if you make a left on Highland where those apartments are, and the post office is up there, and there's a clinic up there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you make that left and you go up the road past the apartments, you keep going. There's a dirt road on the left and it's got a little tiny sign, but they take the Slash there for free. I checked on it today. And it's on Saturdays.
Wow.
And I want to say it's from 9 to 1.
Yeah, when I went up to the place behind the jail, they wanted to charge me $60 for a trailer.
Yeah, and that's for a small load.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, this must be a different place, but it's very close to the other one. Huh.
So if you have an address or something more specific, you can email that to me and Nate. So we can make sure it gets added to this. Be great.
Dan, if you're talking, Dave, if you're talking to me, I can hardly hear you.
Just get closer to me. Can you hear me now?
It's not that I can't hear you. It's that it's hard to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I just have to be a lot closer. So if you have specifics in terms of address or directions, if you email to me, then we can make sure that this topic is upgraded. Do that.
Yeah, Kelly,
I think you're asking me to give you the specifics on where this place is.
Yes.
Okay, I'll have to go up there because it was Teller County Waste, the girl at Teller County Waste that told me about it. And I forgot, we used to take it there years ago and I had just forgotten about it. But I'll have to physically drive up there and get the information from them and I'll get it to you.
Thank you. Okay, any more discussion of this document? Does everyone want to feel that this?
the document, you're going to hand this out at the forum, correct?
Yes.
A paper document?
Yes.
Because I'm assuming that on this document, all the blue highlighted, that if that was on a Word document on your computer, that's a link, correct?
The link.
So I'm afraid that these won't really help people if we hand them to them on paper. Should we add a URL address so that they can actually type that in to go there? Because they won't be able to click it, on a piece of paper.
Maybe I'm just not computer savvy, but when I tried to copy the URL, when I pasted it in, it pasted the title instead of the URL address.
You know what, David? I get the gist of what you're saying, but whatever you changed in your audio, it's not making it better.
Yeah, I think it's working off of your microphone. Actually, I think we're hearing David through your microphone.
So if I'm correct, and David, you were saying that when you would copy and paste the URL to the Word document, it would automatically change it to this.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me better now?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, so what I did was just test this, was type in the exact title, and it came right up. So, I mean, the other thing is we can email those out.
That might be the easiest thing, is that if we could email it out to everyone.
Okay.
Nate, how can you hear us, Nate?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to the audio, but it's really broken. David, I can see him. I can see that he's not driving through a tunnel, but it sounds like he is.
That's strange. I think we'll just have to get as close as we can. I don't know why it's degrading. It seemed like it was.
Well,
Nate, whatever you're
doing,
saying, we can hear you.
yeah, whatever you're doing, Nate, is working well.
Okay, thank
I have to be the translator.
Yes. I can give this mic to you, so you can share this.
Dan, can you hear me?
Going back, can you hear me now?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. Kelly, Rich just handed me something he looked at on his phone. It says the divide/collection site is a Cusp collection site. I don't know if that's a different one or the same one as what you're talking about, but I think Rich can probably email it to you. All right, so back to the issue though of URL. You're thinking that we could try to email this out, but I still would like to give this document out at the mayor's forum because it still has a lot of resource information that I think would be helpful for people. Unless you want to in the
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, they could even, they could even just Google, like, say, for the example, the first one, wildfire reality, town of Green Mountain Falls. If you Googled that, that'll probably get you to the right spot.
yes.
So
I had planned to show a lot of these sites as part of the presentation of the fall. But we're just so limited on time, it's impossible to try to hit all the sites and really have any discussion about it at all. Okay, that concludes I am going to show a couple of URL sites on the screen. One will be the document or the map that we've all seen, which maps and shows that Green Mountain Falls is at the very top of the list of the worst and most high probability for wildfire. And that's why I'm going to take this off, is because I want really to get people's attention very quickly that we have a serious problem. It's really the message. And one of the questions that I see coming up, or that I might want Rich, you or Dan to answer, would be what we've talked about many times in our meetings, is in the event there is a wildfire active in our area and the firefighting crews begin to drive through, determine where they're going to defend, what they will defend, what they're going to drive by, what they're going to try and protect. They're going to look at, some residents' properties than others. And if somebody has not done any attempt at remediation or mitigation, probably a drive-by. That house is probably gone. The house is remediated. We have a defensible zone.
yeah, I can definitely send that message. Me and Rich, either one of us both could do that.
That's pretty much true. You have to realize what's going on. tax. That will all take place. There's other resources. You've given them a chance.
I really want to try to get a message. I mean, I think everybody who goes here, you're around full time. I'm not sure that our summer residents are as fully engaged in this issue. And I think this is a forum where we might reach some that action. That's what I think.
Dan, can you hear me at all better now?
No, it's still,
That's Nate.
Nate, if you're sitting in front of the laptop, that may be why we can hear you.
Let me try something else.
you know, and you may not need to get very close to the mics.
Is that better? Anything better?
Well,
I'm
it's,
trying different
Maybe-
settings here real quick.
Nate, your audio has always been pretty clear.
Yeah, it's easy to hear you, Nate. It's just, I'm ready to get off here and just come down there because I can't hear anything. It's all garbled.
No.
David, can you try it again?
Can you hear me? Dan?
Yeah.
This is David. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, there you go. That sounds a lot better.
Better.
This microphone.
No, I think there's the settings on this Zoom audio, maybe. But here.
Can you hear me, Dan?
What's that?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, we're going to move on. I think we're all in agreement on the documents that we'll use in mayor's forum. The next item on our agenda is Bronx Day update. And that's Kelly and Dan.
The only thing, the only progress I made was I just basically looked for a tablecloth or a table display that we could order. And Kelly, you had some information, right?
Yeah, I'm having a heck of a time getting a hold of these people. Hold on one. So if we were to get the custom vinyl banner for the Bronx Day booth, a 4x8 banner is $59.20. But I'm having a heck of a time getting a hold of them because what they want you to do is a chat and but you wait and wait and wait. It could easily be a half hour that you're waiting on hold. And I've done this twice now and still not actually gotten to talk to a person. But from what I could tell, a 4x8 custom vinyl banner is $59.20. I looked at the tablecloths for a 8-foot table because we can borrow the one from Sally Bush. But they were way more expensive. So I thought maybe the banner was the way to go.
And we paid the entry fee or to be in.
We shouldn't have an entry fee. I talked to Margaret and I filled out the application. I was not able to complete it online, so I had to print it out and fill it out and mail it in. But she didn't think we would have an entry fee for the Bronx Days booth because we're nonprofit. But I've not heard back from them yet, so I don't know.
Okay, are y'all planning to have any sort of literature to hand out, or are you planning to ask for, that would be an and or, planning to ask for donations?
I think it's not a bad idea to ask for donations. I don't know where we would get the literature, but I would love to have it to hand out to people.
Woodland Park, the Colorado State Forest Service. We can contact Dave Paletti or somebody up there, and they could probably give us a bunch of literature.
That would be great.
Weren't we also going to print out that Ready, Set, Go?
Who did you say to contact?
Oh, Dave Paletti. He's the guy that wrote our prescription for the mitigation work that's going up on Thomas Trail. I mean, there's multiple people that work in that office. It's the Woodland Park, Colorado State Forest Service office. If you just Google that, you can give them a call, and they should have lots of printed literature that we can hand out. Stuff that shows kind of like your, your home assessment, your Ready, Set, Go type stuff, your how to mitigate your property.
Perfect. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I would love to have at that table. I was talking to Nate today, and I thought if we could get a banner with the photo that he had uploaded, the picture of the wildfire, that's an attention grabber, and maybe just something, just a little blurb, like almost like a hashtag, so people will read it. Green Mountain Falls is #1 for critical fire danger in the state of Colorado. That might make them come to the table. But, I mean, there may be a better verbiage that you guys could think of.
Free beer.
Oh, I like that one.
I'll be there.
That'll get them there.
Yep.
Well, I think we're depending on Dan and Kelly, the two of you, to, do whatever you have to do to get a banner or a table or whatever it is that we need. Keep in mind that there is cost that will have to be approved. Right, Nate?
Yeah, and I talked to the board and they were fine with the minimal cost situation to help out. I
So
talked to
it's $60 is
Yeah, that's fine. And then Sally Bush, we can borrow a table from there, and I don't know what else you need. Oh, the town can print out some of the more simple materials, like the non sort of fancy glossy brochures. We could print out that Ready, Set, Go stuff or whatever you want. But our printer is not great enough for some of the more graphic oriented handouts. So that might be the kind of stuff we look for from the Forest Service or other places.
Has the Board of Trustees taken up the issue of being able to accept donations as tax-free and having a fund? I talked to Mayor Dixon, and he said that was on the agenda. I don't know if it was the last meeting or.
There was discussion about it. I think they want more discussion to come. I think Becky was going to come up with more of a policy, I guess, or something like just for the mechanics of who deals with the funds and how things are accounted for. But we can certainly create the accounts or basically the codes in the accounting system to track the funds. That's not a problem to do that.
So you think we're at a point now where we can go forward in asking for donations?
I think so.
To the Fire
Yes.
Mitigation Fund?
Yes.
Okay.
You know how the firemen sometimes will have a boot that you can put the donations in. We could do something like that.
Whatever you think, what you and Dan come up with is, I think, fine. You want to have a fireman's booth there for collecting money?
There was some, there's quite a bit of talk about, at the board meeting, about how to handle like if a donor wants their donation to go to a specific cause. I just think it has to be very clear on the sort of the generic phrasing of it as you presented tonight. I think that's the way to go, at least for now. And then if someone, for some reason, wanted to donate maybe a larger amount of money for a specific use, that might need to have some more conversation or some more clarity around that. But if it's just, you know, a boot with $5 here and there, I don't think that's, you know, people are expecting feedback for that to go to a specific cause. But that was one of the main points that the board discussed in terms of how to make sure, or how to define the donation in a way that, define the expectations for the donors in a way that is both accountable, but also satisfying for the donors, if that makes sense. But so that was a lot of the conversation that maybe needed to happen about what if a person wanted to make a larger donation to a specific thing, how do we handle that? But I guess we'll just kind of cross that bridge when we come to it. I think it's safe to ask for donations at this point, and we can figure it out as we go, but the ball is in motion for doing that.
I think Becky was talking about having it annotated as very specific line items. So, yeah, that's something that she's, I believe, going to present, I guess, to the board. You know, like Nate said, after there's a policy that's that we can look at, you know, specifically. But all that stuff is going to be annotated, I believe she said, like in line items. Like if somebody wanted to donate money specifically to, you know, what if fire mitigation wanted a wood chipper or whatever you guys specifically want. Of course, there could be like general funds of people that would just, you know, they just want to donate money to the, you know, fire mitigation advisory committee. You know, yeah, she had indicated that they would be just specifically annotated as very specific line items. That's all.
I think in the last meeting and looking at our minutes, just in an offhand discussion, we named the following things as examples of funding. That would be the siren, signage for fire restriction escape routes, money to help those who can't afford mitigation, professional grant writing, and a new town-owned chipper. Those were some ideas from the last meeting. So
I think it's always best to have the donor be okay with a general donation and not necessarily expect it to go to a specific thing, and basically make it the discretion of spending that goes to the committee and then is supported by a vote in the committee, and then that triggers staff to be able to spend the money on whatever the committee wants.
I think my understanding is what we want is if people want to make a donation, if they're writing a check or notating it somehow, it is that it goes to the fire mitigation fund. And without giving specifics, that it goes to the siren and the chipper. But I think we need to be prepared to tell people that if they're going to give money, what are some of the things that the fire mitigation committee or the town is going to use those funds for? I think that's fair. I want that. It's not going to go to the general fund,
Right,
to finance the town's business.
they'll definitely be accounted for separately.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Dan or Kelly, regarding Rock Day? Thank you both. It sounds like y'all are moving ahead with that. What is the date of property?
The 30th of July.
All right, moving on to item 8 in our meeting. It is the Mile High Youth Corps Co-swap grant update. And there's several items. We'll just follow. We had originally in our last meeting accepted a draft for it was a scope of work for slash and log removal that had been prepared for the committee's review by Don Walker. And it was to develop a scope, an actual execution plan for removal of the slash and logs, and everything from the site that Mile High Youth Corps is currently working. Under the terms of the grant, the town of Green Mountain Falls, I'm not saying this right, please correct me, we have an obligation to remove that material because Mile High Youth Corps is not, right?
Correct.
It's the town responsibility. And we were going to perform that responsibility through volunteers. So Don Walker had prepared this plan for volunteer work, presented it. We didn't feel like we had enough time to really review it in detail. That was something that we postponed for further discussion to this meeting for final action. We have Don Walker here with us tonight, so that if we need to involve Don in this discussion and kind of where we're going, we can do that. I will say that before we get into that, probably might be appropriate, Nate, you had a discussion with Olympia and who else was it?
Becky and
regarding this work plan.
yeah, and so I wrote the long memo because I wanted to clarify the entire situation for everyone. I've been receiving basically messages from people that indicate there's some misinformation going on, and I think we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit on this. Yes, it is the town's responsibility per the grant to get the fuel removed, but I've heard people say that Mile High is not doing the work the way that we've directed them to. That is not the case. Up on the screen is the actual prescription as included in the grant application. It says, when feasible, cut fuel can be hauled by work crews to designated pickup areas. Town will coordinate volunteer and staff labor for fuel removal and hauling in order to reduce such work by the Mile High Youth Corps crew. And it's been framed to me lately, and there's been some pressure as far as telling them to go a different direction. But I do have some significant questions about the plan as presented. So I was hoping we could discuss some of those issues tonight and then go from there. And just wanted to remind everyone that this is just like the Parks Rec Committee. It's an advisory committee. Just because, people think a certain plan is good doesn't mean it's necessarily the best solution for the town. So I wanted to just throw that out there, kind of reset a little bit on this plan and discuss more and figure out from here where to go.
Okay, sounds good. Could you flip to the email that is, I think it's the last document in the package?
Yes.
And to the very end, because I think that really summarizes the issue. That last bullet point, the winching, I can't read that.
The winching situation, the plan,
I got that part.
i.e. the plan presented. Just a lot of concerns because and some of that I just wanted to clarify with Don tonight and just talk through that, because basically, I had all these concerns and questions, but they haven't been answered yet. So I just needed to talk through these a little bit more. And in order to, and just to clarify, CIRSA is our insurance carrier, for better or worse. I know some people aren't thrilled with that situation, but they are our insurance carrier at this point. So any volunteer project, particularly ones that are using mechanized equipment, private vehicles, and things like that, need to be vetted before approved. And likely there's a cost to that. So it's not just as simple as saying, yeah, that sounds great, let's just do that. We have to, it has to be vetted at multiple levels.
So I'd like to read the full paragraph under that point. The winching situation alone is concerning for Becky and me, and likely CIRSA, since it is a mechanized system using unknown volunteer equipment and vehicles that could cause severe injury or property damage. We would need to send this work plan to CIRSA for an insurance quote, the cost of which would then need to be approved by the board. So I guess, that's a major issue, because the whole plan that's been put together for us by Don, it is using a winch, winching the full logs down to a yarding site, bucking those trees into smaller logs that can be hauled away. And currently what is being done on the site is that the trees are being cut into shorter lengths and stacked. And that is consistent with the current prescription, right?
I wouldn't say the prescription is consistent with what we talked to Mile High about originally.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same day that we talked about this winching possibility, we talked about access points and staging areas and gathering fuel at those sites to make it easier for volunteers to come up and grab that by hand and essentially carry it down. And then that's when Don came up with the winching idea. But I just have a lot of concerns about not only the mechanized system, but just a lot of the logistics. For instance, there's very limited access points along that, and all the access points involve private property access. So we're dealing with limited space, limited access. What happens to these 30-foot tree sections when they're brought down through someone's property? Number one, it could create could damage the ground, it could damage landscaping, it could damage a septic system. And then once they're out, where do they go? There's very limited space along the roads there to manipulate these large trees. And then you have volunteers. I'm assuming the plan is for volunteers then to use chainsaws at those points to buck them into smaller bowls, which is then you're having volunteers with chainsaws on town right of way or private property. So, that's some of the questions that I tried to summarize in here, and there were others that came up afterwards. Another one is just for the volunteer effort itself. These winching teams would be maybe 5 people or something, and so that's a very small group compared to like a large volunteer workday where you have a dozen or so people that are enthusiastic about helping. Maybe that's not the greatest concern, but it is nevertheless something to think about. Another concern is that, or just just general ideas that, yeah, winching, using a winch sounds great. It sounds like it's gonna be easier. But because of the logistics, the limited access points, the extremely steep terrain, I think there's gonna be complications that come up that may not be necessarily planned for at this time. So anyway, I wanted to talk to Don. I wanted to get his input and maybe kind of explain what vehicles are used, what happens to the trees when they're winched down the hill, how does a tree go sideways hundreds of feet from an area with no access point to above an area with a direct access point, and some of those things that haven't been answered yet. So that's, I think, what the discussion needs to be at this point.
Don, do you mind addressing some of those issues? This is Don.
Either of
Walker.
those
Don
work.
is a member of the Parks, Rec, and Trail Committee of the town of Green Mountain Falls. He's done an awful lot of volunteer work, I just saw an example of some unbelievably excellent work that was sort of engineered and carried out by Don and the team up on the Dewey Trail just yesterday. There's no question in my mind, looking at that piece of work, that Don has brings a lot of skill and knowledge to a project like this.
Thank you, Dave. That's good. Appreciate the compliment.
Press the button.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate the compliment. First thing, I'd like to kind of get off on an even keel with you, Nate. I drafted a work plan and brought that to you on May 26th. Exactly what you see today, with the exception of a physical fitness clause that you suggested I add. At that point in time, you agreed for this information to be presented to the Fire Mitigation Committee, so I just don't understand why you've changed your position on this. Can you explain that?
Because I've talked with other people who have different ideas than I do, and have thought about it from other perspectives, and have together we've generated a list of concerns. I emailed this list of concerns to you guys last Thursday. I didn't receive a response. What I received was calls from other people and interactions with other people, basically trying to insinuate that Mile High, number one, is not doing what they're supposed to do, which is not true, and two, to put pressure on this process. And there's no rush.
So what I understand, the process that we spelled out here and you agreed to, is it?
I agreed to consider it.
Wait.
I didn't say, yes, this is going to be the process that we use.
Well, I beg your pardon. I assume when somebody, when I pass information for somebody that's in charge of the project and they say it's okay, then I presume it's okay to go forward with that and talk about that and expect it to come to pass.
We are talking about it now. I never said it was going to be used as the method or primary method of fuel extraction from the site.
Well, I guess I missed that formality.
What is it that we need to do at this point, Nate? Are you saying that based on your memo, my takeaway is that the SOW that has been presented by Don, written by Don, is no longer viable and cannot be considered? Is that?
I have asked several questions that have not been answered yet. If we could get the answers to my questions, then maybe we could proceed. But no one seems to want to answer my questions. That's the
I thought
problem.
all the questions were answered when this was drafted and presented to them.
Then why would I send you an email with more questions?
Because you changed your mind.
Hey, Nate, may I interject here?
Of course.
This is Dan. So I'm hearing that the questions are that there are safety concerns, there are qualification concerns, and there are potential damage to property by dragging the logs down, winching them down. Are those some of the questions, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so all that needs to be done is how are we mitigating the risk? I think maybe that just needs further explanation as to what level of risk it is and how are we mitigating it. Then the next question would be how are we mitigating damage, or how are we going to deal with damage if it occurs when we're dragging the material out of there? So, Don, I don't know that your plan is not viable yet. I think though that it's rightly those questions are rightly asked in my opinion. Winching is sometimes a dangerous affair, and if it can be further explained by either you or whoever might be performing the work to put minds at ease, if you will, that may be the way to answer that question.
Well, I'm here to answer any question that I'm able. I just wanted to get the conversation started off on an even kill. And so when it's insinuated that I put out misinformation, I disagree. I have an understanding with Nate. It's honest. I respect your authority, your position, and the execution of this contract. And I'm here to bend the will of this committee to get this thing accomplished. We're all after the same thing. It's just we're in a mid-course correction. It's very hard to navigate.
I don't think we're in a mid-course correction. I think that the decision on how to extract fuels was never made.
Why didn't you ask me that when this information was presented to you? Well, we sat down and had a conversation about it.
Excuse me, Nate, I think we're gonna be beating a dead dog here for a little while. We have quite a bit of time to figure this out. And I think it's pursuant to all of us to sit down. And if there are problems with the plan, work through those problems. The Fire Mitigation Committee has not approved any plan as yet. I've read the plan. I had a couple of concerns and I planned on addressing them with you.
The time factor I see is with Mile High and how they are, felling and
What do you mean by
Trees.
time factor?
well, they're bucking. If they're bucking the trees in such a way that we can't winch them down efficiently, it kills the whole plan.
Well, if they're meeting their contract, then we have to revisit it. If they're leaving them in 30-foot lengths, which that was a new one to me. I thought they were in shorter lengths. A 30-foot log is pretty heavy. And if we want to move it, we need to sit down and discuss it and look at it and decide how we want to do it.
And insure it.
Well, yeah, sure, of course, and I did have a couple of questions about the 1,000-foot drag and stuff of that nature. But that's something we can work out and see between now and then. Basically, the plan is a very good plan, but we have to look at some aspects of it to make sure it's going to work. I haven't been up there and looked at what they're doing. I don't know how long those drags are, and I don't know how much property it's going to go over. So I would say in the next couple of months, we should be able to come up with a plan, come up with volunteers. I've started working on a few other things, a list to keep track of volunteers, keep track of their experience and things of that nature. But I don't think this is something that has to be settled immediately, because my understanding is we're not going to remove that stuff until next July. Is that correct?
We talked about
That's what
next
was
spring. We talked about next spring, summer.
Next spring, summer? Okay. We have a question.
Yes, John. I'm listening, and if I hear one of the salient points is
whether or not the logs persist in a 30-foot length or not. If they're already cutting them, then Don's plan can never be executed, even if you work through the issues that you're discussing. So that does seem to be a time-sensitive decision, whether they're instructed to buck them shorter than 30 feet or not. Because again, if they're not in 30-foot lengths, then this becomes mute. The decision's made. You can't winch.
You can't go
You
back
wouldn't
and
winch
unbuck them.
Yes. So that's what
That's
I
a valid
hear.
point. That's a valid point that goes to the issue of time sensitivity. So
30-foot logs are long log. And I'm not sure how dry it's going to be in 1 year's time. It should be dry, but
the alternative, I think, is in the first sub bullet point under under the prescription by day for letting, the last sentence that we're scrolling away from point here. That's what this will allow for a relatively straightforward plan for fuel removal. Would enable,
Wood, which is able to be hand carried or wheelbarrowed out of the zone with no winching involved. That's
So-
what they're doing now.
So really, we either have a winching program, right? Or that's the option, is carrying it out by hand or on a wheelbarrow, right? And so we're really at a point of talking about which of those two is most viable. Given all the set of circumstances, being SRSA, yarding, crossing private property, all of me. But if you're going to carry it out on a wheelbarrow by hand, you're going to go across somebody's private property. I mean, and we've done this since this grant was applied for. We've known that. So that's not new.
We did not know what access points we would end up with and what the logistics of that are.
Yeah.
Are they leaving 30-foot logs currently?
No,
So they are already in the process of bucking them up smaller?
Yes.
correct.
Okay, well, my thought on this is that they can't be unbucked. But if they're left in 30-foot logs, we then later have the option to decide whether they need to be winched or not. If we decide that they're not going to be winched and yarded, then they can be bucked up later.
By whom?
I don't know who.
That to me is the volunteers, right?
Not necessarily in my plan, no.
I'm just saying that if we want,
Let me clarify that. It's like, the bucking should occur in a staging yard. Where it's safe, it's flat, it's free to play, but trying to buck something on a 45-degree slope is very dangerous and difficult and should be done by skilled sawyers.
Okay, good point. And the sawyers will be gone by next spring. The skilled sawyers.
Right.
I wonder if there's a possibility for any demonstrations.
A demonstration of Don's plan? Or I shouldn't say Don's.
Correct.
Say the current SOW that is before the committee. Is that what you're asking, Nick?
Yes, if there's a possibility of a demonstration at all with Don's plan versus, other ideas as to how to remove now these smaller cut balls. Combination of the two. I don't know. That's up to you guys whether that's even a viable option.
what are the buck sizes now?
It looks to me like they're 36 inches or 48 inches, somewhere in that range. Some are long. I mean, I walked through there the other day What I don't understand is, I've also walked the Thomas Trail at where Cusp is currently working. I was out there this afternoon. And they are doing exactly the same thing. They're stacking cut wood. And they're not bringing it down. It's gonna stay up there forever. So I guess I'm confused about why we're, in the position that we're in at this point of having to bring, these cut pieces of wood down off the mountain if Cusp doesn't have to.
Because Cusp uses, well, the Swift crew was the one doing that work, and they have done lop and scatter, but I don't know why it seems to be a little bit different now in that area than the way they did it before. Before they would leave larger trees just bare as part of the lop and scatter and not spend time cutting them up. I don't know why that changed. But I guess for this winching, I would have a couple of questions that we would need to answer to move forward. I guess in a case of where a tree is in the middle of the slope, where in the middle of two access points, let's say, how do you get it sideways and how do you get it down without potentially creating a ditch, a drainage ditch, essentially, that then has to be repaired for the homeowners?
There's a skid cone that's attached to the front of the log. A choker chain's passed through the skid cone, and it helps protect the environment.
How do you get it sideways from hundreds of feet away from where you can get down through an access point?
Snatch block.
Whose truck is the winching truck?
It can be a truck, it can be my truck, it can be a tree, it can be a pole. It has different access ways to secure it.
And so what's the amount of time that it would take to get a 30-foot large tree section down from the most remote area of the work site down to the street?
I can't say. I don't know.
What does Dave Paletti's prescription say again? Can we look at that real quick? And what I'm interested in is his prescription as it relates to the materials. Lop and scattered to a depth of no more than 12 inches. Limbs will be cut into pieces less than 36 inches in length in areas with a lot of biomass. Some trees may be retained to avoid having slashed deeper than 12 inches. When feasible, chip slash on site. Does he really address in his prescription what's to be done with these tree trunks?
No.
He's got bowls that exceed 30 feet in length shall be cut in half logs.
No, that's Don's scope of work.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Is it just the red print then?
We're looking up up further in my memo, page 2 of my memo, where I copy and pasted the prescription from the grant itself.
Okay.
So to me, the lop and scatter to a depth of no more than 12 inches is essentially what Cusp has been doing the last few years, because they have not hauled anything out. The DNR is aware that this is very challenging terrain, so they said, it says, when feasible, cut fuel can be hauled by work crews. If my interpretation of that is that if a tree trunk is less than 12 inches wide, then it could be in diameter, then it could be left if it's not feasible to remove that.
It's only offer a, try to get to some place that we can move forward. Where they are currently working is easily acceptable. I mean, accessible. I mean, they're sort of behind the homes that are on Mountain Avenue. And they started at that point on Thomas Road. So everything that's been done up to this point and will be done over the next week or two is still going to be relatively close in terms of being able to pull whatever off the mountain. Right?
We only have 2 access points, Kelly's property
Right.
and another property on the east or south of Mountain Avenue. It's not like we can just drag straight down on anyone's property. There's only been a handful of people have replied to allow access.
But as they continue to work to the west, you're getting further and further away from those 2 access points to get it all, right?
There are 2 more access points as you go west and around that corner. So they're about equally spaced. There's one close to your house. There's one close to the big lot off of Rock Street that we've been going in and out of. There's one at Kelly's and there's one at the East Mountain Avenue. So they're spaced relatively equally around there. I think there's 5 total.
So we've got, at this point, we're 2 weeks into this project, is that right?
3.
I hope it started June 6th.
June 6th.
And how many weeks is the project?
15.
So we're just at the very beginning. Does it make sense for us to have a meeting with you?
That's what I suggested in my email that no one replied to.
Well, I didn't
That's
think it
part
was.
of my frustration. It's like no one acknowledged my email. No one acknowledged my suggestion to meet, which is what I suggested.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great idea.
Okay. Obviously, we have the constraint of not having more than, I think, we can only have 2 fire mitigation advisory committee members meet with you.
Correct.
Otherwise, it becomes another open meeting.
Correct.
So Don, Rich are the 2, I mean, Don has prepared the SOW. Rich is the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee member that's the liaison for this. So I'm prepared to meet with Rich, you, Don, Nick, I guess, to try to come up with some sort of workable solution and a decision within the next week or 2 so that we can tell Mile High what we want them to do.
I can also talk to them about leaving the larger trees for now, and at worst case scenario, if it's not feasible for some reason to do the winching plan, and we realize that, maybe they could spend some time bucking them into shorter ones before they're off site. I mean, that's another possibility as well. That makes sense to perhaps go down that route as well.
Are you open for that, Don?
Sure.
Okay. Can we schedule something next week?
Could we do it? Next week is audit week for us.
Okay.
Could we meet perhaps Friday
Of next week?
this week?
This week?
Or tomorrow? Or Friday of next week could work. Hopefully we'll be nearing the end of our auditing process.
Okay, yeah, let's do it Friday next week. a lot going on right now anyway in town. Can you do that?
I believe so.
That will be the,
Third number. First.
July 1st. You want to send out a meeting invitation?
Sure, I'm pretty much available, let me mention, probably I don't think it matters time of day for me that day. That's the only
Morning's good for me.
Morning's good for me.
Done morning. Okay.
And Nick? Nick, are you there?
Right. That's Friday, the July 1st. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, that'll be okay with me.
All right. Thank you.
Well,
Come to a resolution. In the meantime, could you ask Mile High to leave some of the logs so that if we decide we want to have a trial, that we can
Yes.
have something to trial with?
Yes, will do.
Okay. Thank you. Continuing on, that really was, are you cutting out? No. Okay. We need to go back to your seat if you want. I didn't have to leave. I was going to thank you for your involvement here. Okay. So, continuing on this discussion of the Mile High Youth Corps Post-Rock grant update, you're correct. There has been some comment about the work that Mile High is currently doing. And Dan, you have walked the site and just recently, what were your, and you're speaking from a position of a lot of experience in this. What was your impression of the work that's being carried out right now from what you have seen?
The two main things that I saw were that it looked like the crown spacing wasn't meeting the prescription and 10 feet apart. And the other thing was just, I don't know if the prescription says for flush cutting, but there are some stumps that are left that probably should be taken down, in my opinion. The main thing was the 10-foot crown spacing. It looks like they're not taking enough trees.
I can talk to them about that. I also asked David Paletti if he would come out and walk it with me again, just to kind of update or get his perspective on it as well. I haven't heard back yet, but hopefully he can do that pretty soon. I did talk to them about the stumps because I noticed those too, and they did say they were going to go back and take those down more flush to the ground. Those are just remnants of some of the training cuts because they still have members of their crew that are basically still going through certification training. So that's kind of part of their process, I guess. They have a really hard time staffing this year, my understanding. So they have a lot of people that are being trained on the fly.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. That was probably the scenario. But
I think a good comparison, because we have them both active at this time, is the work that Swift is doing. And I mean, when I walk Thomas Trail where Swift is working right now, man, you talk about, it's almost clear cut. There is, that 10-foot spacing is very apparent.
Mm-hmm.
It is not apparent on the Cusp grant.
Okay.
I mean, they're far from getting to the prescription, in my opinion, and I'm not nearly as knowledgeable as Dan or Rich for that matter. But I think there are others in the audience tonight who have also walked it and have made the same observations from an untrained eye. I think when you have citizens who kind of look at something and they go, "What? Doesn't look like what?" I mean, it suggests that maybe we ought to, in our role as the overseer, need to be overseen. So,
Will do.
because we certainly want this to be done according to the prescription at the end.
Correct.
Okay. Item B, where we have Mile High Youth Corps reporting coordination.
Just an update to say that I met with them and they're going to start sending me their actual statistics per week or what they've gathered so far. They have forms where they tally all the trees cut. I've asked them to also provide species cut as well, and then I'll talk to them further about this. But they also have a reciprocal form that basically allows us to rate them on the job they're doing. So the input tonight is definitely valuable, and I encourage anyone to email me or let me know of any thoughts or concerns at any time, and I can relate that to them via these forms that I basically fill out for them every 3 weeks is what they want. So, but they've been very responsive to, you know, any communication or concerns I've had so far. So that should be good.
Yeah, great, thanks. I don't have anything else with regard to the Mile High Youth Corps or Cusp grant. Does anyone else have any final comments before we move on? Okay, then that brings us to the Cusp mitigation work update. Nate.
So Adrian stopped by yesterday. Swift is done. They are not able to continue with that situation. I guess the crew is coming from a different facility than they did last year, so it added another hour to their drive time. It just, in the end, they were only working basically like 3 hours a day. And so it just wasn't a feasible situation to continue. So Adrian is reworking the cost per acre numbers, and basically we'll just update the contract with them, but they are going to continue with their own crews, in-house crews, I understand. So that's quite a change there. So anyway, they're gonna continue, but they're gonna start next on the Iona Scott right-of-way area, and we were talking about how to remove fuels in that area as well. And one thought I had was perhaps we could do a winch demonstration on that area if we wanted to kind of see how that works, kind of a trial case. It's only a ½ acre total, and then there's 3 streets that basically intersect that area. So we thought maybe that'd be a good test case demo spot for the winch process itself, if that makes sense to do. But other than that, I'm gonna meet up with them again and just walk the area one more time, just so we're on the same page on the boundaries. I sent notice to all the property owners that are adjacent to that right away, and I've communicated with some. There's no real concern about taking, trees that need to be taken. So, so I think it's a good situation to move forward on as soon as possible.
So when you say that my understanding is under the grant that we are working right now, there was to be 19.5 acres remediated along Thomas Trail in this year.
Of town-owned property.
Of town-owned property, right. So how many acres have they completed at this point?
I'm not sure. I can ask him for specifics next time, but I don't think they got very far.
They've been working. I was surprised at where they were working. It was kind of up just right behind us, which I thought they were going to be working more to the west.
That was kind of their eastern boundary, because that's right where the co-swap boundary is, that fencing and everything that Don and I put up. They were just west of that. And in fact, they cut some of the trees that our fencing was posted to. So I'm gonna have to go out and do some fence fixing on that. But anyway, the fence is up as best as it can be now. There's damage to the gate that I've zip tied together and is kind of holding for now. But anyway, so yeah, so that where they started was just west of that border between where the co-swap parcel ended. And they were gonna just work west and work uphill and just do as much as they could to cobble together that 19 acres, but I don't know, it's probably gonna take a while for them to meet that with their in-house crew.
Are they going to include the Island Scott tract as part of the 19.5 acres?
Yes.
They are.
And I suppose if we wanted to change that a little bit, we could potentially, I mean, I'll talk to Adrian more about it. We could potentially do other town right-of-way areas if we thought there were some that were beneficial or valuable to do. Because I think some of that terrain that they were hoping to do up behind that CSU water facility, or some of that's just so steep and rocky that it would be almost not impossible, but just very, very time consuming. So I haven't talked to them about that, but I don't know why that wouldn't, specifically, but I don't know why that wouldn't be an option. If we wanted to identify some other right of ways, maybe as an option for them, we could.
Well, it'd be nice to get a clearer picture from Adrian as to where they are, how much, they have left under the grant, so that we could start considering other areas for them to work for their crews. I mean, Adrian has promised us for over a year that he would get the eye on the sky as part of this deal. But I've also discovered over the last week or so that most of the property owners on that end of Hondo are now participating in the Cusp grant, the private property grant sharing.
Oh, good.
My direct neighbor, David Young, the Dorhams, the people who bought Dick Bratton's house, I think have all entered into the Cusp grant program. So we've got a lot of participation up in that area, which is very gratifying. And if we can get Iona Scott, then, I mean, we're really beginning to make a lot of progress along, that upper portion of the mountain and down in the town.
So you're gonna talk about doing a drag out of Island Scott to see how it does?
We just talked about that as a potential, very visible spot to have sort of a test case on that, and you could winch up or down there.
I'd like to interject, right? I thought my neighbor contacted Adrian because she said she'd like to take the fuels from those cuts.
Okay, I haven't talked to Adrian about that, but
Okay, right.
Don, do you have the equipment to do this? I mean, do you have access to everything that's in your tank?
Yes.
That was one of my big questions. Okay, thanks.
And I live right across the road from the Island Scott tract. I've had Cusp work done. Adrian was wonderful. The crew he brought was terrific. They took out about 20 trees from my property, so I mitigated the bank there that's across from the Iona Scott. And I've been pushing for Iona Scott to be done for several years now. And the Bagwell property that's connected to the town property is desperately in need of having the trees done. There's more dead trees, I think, on the Bagwell property than on the town property. And it needs to come out, and that's a comment I have.
Don, I just wanted to be specific, Rich, on that resources list. The only thing I don't have available was the wood chipper and my personal availability, but let's be clear, that was counting on using the cities or somebody else's.
Okay, yeah, that was just some of the questions I had because I didn't know where that equipment was coming from.
So I'd like to request that when you have the discussions with Adrian, that you'd let us know kind of what's going on.
okay.
Is there anything else on the Cusp update?
No.
Dory, you had said you wanted to comment.
Yeah, I have a thought, and I had it for quite some time.
Can you,
I think probably,
use the
probably a lot of you know Chris Randina, that used to be our town clerk. And I remember she used to go out on Wednesday, her days off, and drive around town and cite dead trees. And then according to our town ordinances and codes, she would send letters to the people and say, these trees must be removed in a certain period of time, or the town will remove them and you'll be charged for it. And it was very successful, and we got rid of a lot of dead trees. Is that something we can't do anymore?
I don't know.
We have we do have a town ordinance. It is the nuisance tree ordinance. You're correct. It's been enforced in the past. Since I have been part of the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee, which was January of last year, we have requested on many occasions that nuisance tree ordinance be enforced. I don't know how to get you an answer, Lori, because the answer that I have gotten is that we can't enforce it for insurance reasons, for liability reasons, for all kinds of reasons. I don't understand what's changed under the law.
We could do it for years, but now we can't.
Well, so maybe your question should be directed to the Board of Trustees directly and ask for action. Because the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee has done all it can do.
Gotcha.
But thank you, I appreciate you bringing it forward.
And drop day table for Kelly and Dan, should they have that information sheet that you're presenting at the mayor's forum, that people fill out what they want? Wouldn't it be good, you could get more in your database?
At Brock Day? Yes. Good point, thank you. That is, we're at the end of our agenda for this evening. I'll give one final opportunity for those who attended or might be on the phone to make final comments before we adjourn our meeting. None, then we adjourn this meeting at 8:17. Thank you all.